Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to talk about some big news that came out today, almost said December 15th, July 15th, with regards to Overwatch Stadium. And I wanted to talk about how Stadium is kind of a reflection of all of my biggest issues that I currently have with Overwatch and the development of this game. Because as much as I am really on board with almost everything that they are doing, there is one thing that they are not doing well, and to me, Stadium is the perfect representation of it, and I want to talk about it. So, if you missed the news and the announcement, there was a director's take released today called Future Formats. The majority of this is talking about the upcoming Quick Play Hacked events that are coming up, where they're testing out different kinds of 6v6 game types. So there's a 1 tank, 3 damage, 2 support flex version of it, where if you have 3 players who queue as DPS, but they can choose to play tank as well. Like one of them can play tank, so you can have a 2-2-2 or a 1-3-2. And then they're having another mode where it's like a dynamic queue, so it'll prioritize 2-2-2 games, but if there's a deficit of the number of tanks in games or in the queue, it'll start games as queue games or flex games so that you can have a 2-2-2 or a 1-3-2 type game. So those are the quick play hacks that they're talking about, and with it, they included a little bit on some of the current, or at least as of June 28th, the statistics for daily player counts for some of the different modes. And you can see here the numbers are unranked 5v5 is about 54% of daily players. So that's a pretty high number. Over half of the players play quick play, essentially. Then you have about 37% playing ranked 5v5, 19% in unranked 6v6, 8% in ranked 6v6, 4% in unranked Mystery Heroes, and then 3% each in Stadium Ranked and Stadium Unranked. And the big thing is, of course, this last paragraph where they say, overall, 5v5 has maintained its majority and 6v6 continues to see an increase in popularity. Stadium, meanwhile, has settled into a dedicated, smaller audience. With this in mind, while we'll continue supporting Stadium with seasonal balance updates, rank resets, and rewards, we're not planning on expanding Stadium with new heroes or maps. Instead, we're taking what lessons we've gleaned from building it and applying those lessons and those talented devs to our future plans. Now, as you might expect, there's been a kind of range of reactions to this news. My personal favorite, I say with sarcasm in my voice, is this Polygon article where they say Overwatch ends support for its best mode, Stadium, which is absolutely ridiculous considering 6% of daily players played Stadium across both ranked and unranked, which comical that they even think that Stadium is the best mode when clearly people don't play it nearly as much as they play the other modes. But this brings me to kind of the heart of this video and the point of this video, because I have been critical of the Overwatch dev team for basically the same thing for about 3 years now. It's been a little up and down, back and forth, but pretty much I've had the same criticism for a while. And a lot of it has to do with the way that they are developing new modes for this game. And that is both core game modes and Stadium, and the way that Stadium is kind of being fleshed out. And by extension, the way that they are developing maps in the game. Because they, in my opinion, have done very, very well on a lot of things with this game and with pushing this game in new directions. I want to preface this by saying I am not sitting here to say that them ending support for Stadium, ending the rollout of new content for Stadium is a bad thing for the game. I actually am on the opposite spectrum, which is I think it's actually a good thing for the game, because I think an overwhelmingly inaccurate amount of resources were being put into a game mode that was not getting the player base to justify the amount of people that were actually playing or putting work into developing the mode. And if you look at a lot of the things that they've done over the past couple of years in particular, there's a lot of big things that they've done big swings that they've done that I would say are very successful, even if they're things that I don't personally love as much as maybe the average player does. 6v6, I don't like 6v6. I tried playing it again when it rolled out, and I didn't like it, so I don't play it. But obviously it's very popular, and a lot of people do play it. And as they said, it has an increase in its popularity. I don't personally love map voting or hero bans. I've basically avoided competitive because I just don't want to deal with hero bans, because I think by and large you just don't. It's hard, especially in lower ranks. I'm not a super high ranked player, if you guys didn't know. In lower ranks you get a lot of it where people just kind of ban whatever they think is good, and a lot of time it's like not relevant, or they ban in ways that are like stupid. Like D.Va's really good right now, and people are like, well, D.Va's good, so we're not going to ban D.Va, right? We're going to ban like Zarya, who's really good against D.Va, and then don't realize that that's why they're losing to D.Vas, right? Because they think about the heroes they don't like to play against, and they don't actually look at like what's actually really good right now and try to play around that and things like that. I've had a lot of issues with the game where it's very clear when people want to play certain heroes or they're good at certain heroes, and people ban them because it's super easy to just be a one trick and competitive and be like, I'm really good at Reinhardt, and the hero that counters me the most is Ramatra, so I'm just going to get my team to ban Ramatra every game, and we're just going to make that a problem for people. And low ranks, you're not playing against the same people very often, so you just kind of deal with it game after game. That's not the point of this video, but that's one of the reasons why I don't really like hero bans. And map voting, I just feel like I play a lot of the same maps over and over and over again, which is kind of unfortunate, because as much as there are maps I don't love to play, I do think you should play the maps more often. I mean, there's maps I feel like I never play, which is kind of annoying, because sometimes you want to play maps, but also I just think like I get more annoyed when I get a map like Junkertown if I see that I could have had other maps show up. Like I could have had King's Row and I get Junkertown, and I'm like, well, that sucks because one person picked Junkertown. Now I have to play Junkertown. So I don't love it, but I think largely it's been pretty successful. People do seem to like it quite a bit. The 10 heroes this year, that's a really big change. A new hero every season, plus the 5 heroes at the start of the season, or start of the year. That's another big swing they're taking, and I think it's been pretty successful. I don't think they've added a hero where I've been like, that hero is so crazy busted broken that how could they not even test it? But where I really think they have struggled to make the game the best that it can be is in the way that they've rolled out game modes and maps over the past few years. And for me, a lot of this criticism goes back to the announcement of Clash back in, it was like, what, BlizzCon? So it's November 2023 was when they announced Clash was going to be a new game mode. And I remember even back then, they announced that, and I went, I don't think it's a good idea to roll out another new game mode before you have even added more maps to some of these other new game modes. We still are only sitting at 3 Flashpoint maps. Flashpoint has been in the game for 3 years, and we have 3 maps. Like that's a crazy low number. Push only has 4 maps? Like that is a really, really crazy low amount of maps, in my opinion, for a game that used to do like a map every other season. It's crazy that there's so few maps. And I think when you look at Stadium and the development that Stadium got when it comes to maps, it's crazy. The things that they got, right? Like, they had, like, just Stadium exclusive maps, not even maps that are reworked regular maps for Stadium. They got Arena Victoria and Gogadora. They got Place La Croix Redwood Dam, Powder Keg Mine, Thames District, Wuxing University, Serenza. All of those maps are just stadium maps. So in between Neon Junction and Clash, which you can't even play those maps anymore, there was one base map and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stadium maps. And to me, that is where my criticism of Stadium and the dev team really kind of stems from, is this thing that they have been pulling development for one of the most important parts of Overwatch, which is maps, and putting them into a mode that people aren't playing. And when they made Clash, my concern then, which of course ended up being pretty accurate, I think, is that they're pushing out a new mode so shortly after they had already just added another new mode with Flashpoint. And they're giving very little chance for players to play test these modes before they roll them out to the game. And I think that is a really bad way to develop this game. And I think it was creating a huge problem for the base game, which is we're getting all these new heroes, which is great, but we're not getting new maps. And new maps add a really interesting dynamic to the game of Overwatch, because learning new maps creates some really fun style of play, because you learn new routes, you learn new things, you learn which heroes you like to play on different maps, and you kind of go through this phase again of learning the game again. You're on defense on a new map. Okay, do I like to play Widowmaker on this map, or are the sightlines not very long on this map? Would I rather play Ashe or Cassidy? Or do I not want to play hitscan at all on this map? This is not a map where I feel hitscan's really good. Would I rather play a Genji on this map? Would I rather play Tracer on this map? Something like that. There's a really fun dynamic when new maps are added, and you kind of learn what works and what doesn't, and which heroes feel really good. By and large, Overwatch doesn't really have that as a thing. There are some maps where, like, Circuit Royale, for example, is such a good poke map. It's such a good Sigma map if you're on tank, because there's a lot of high ground and the way that map kind of feels. But you can kind of get away with playing pretty much anything on any map if you're good enough. But I think especially, like, when I go into a map, a lot of the time I pick the hero I'm going to play based on the map that I'm playing. Like, I'm not going to play Widowmaker on a control map. Why would I do that? It doesn't usually work that well, because I'm not that good at Widow that I can just hit crazy flick shots on a control map. So there is an element to that I think is really important. And it is crazy to me that they have literally in the past 3 years, they have added 3 maps to the game that you can still play today. Because Clash is dead and gone. Like, there is no Clash anymore. They got rid of everything basically Clash related. They just don't know how to balance the mode, so they got rid of it. Because it's just not popular. And it's not very good. Like, there's reasons why. And so I just think that this to me is a sign that there is movement in the right direction, I hope, towards saying we need to develop the modes that we have already more. We need to invest more in continuing to improve upon the base game of Overwatch. Because as much as there's been some really cool stuff this year for the game, there hasn't been like any groundbreaking stuff, I think, for the base game, really, because they're so focused on heroes. And heroes are really, really great, and I love new heroes. I think new heroes are the thing that drive people to play the game and come back to the game the most. But I think the biggest problem for me when it comes to new heroes is that if a new hero releases and you don't like playing that hero, you kind of just don't play them. And of a lot of people, like, they might play the new hero for a few games, they're like, all right, cool, and then they stop playing again. And yes, maybe new maps don't have that same feel, but I think that maps have a staying power and a sustainability that heroes don't have, because unlike, maps can get changed and reworked. it's not super common that it happens. And so a lot of the time, like, metas on maps are pretty stable. And so when you add a variable like a hero to the game, there is kind of that thing of like, all right, well, how does this hero play on these different maps? When you add a new map to the game, the variable is like, what kind of comps even work on this map? And I think that, to me, is where I really miss getting new maps frequently. I know we're getting an Iceland map later this year, which is great. We're going to get a second map this year, which is great considering we got one map all of last year. But I think there just needs to be more push to develop this side of the game, and I'm really glad that we might be getting that. Like, yes, it is unfortunate that Stadium is an experiment that maybe didn't work the way that they wanted it to, but I think that ultimately there's a lot of really cool stuff to take from Stadium. You could develop some of those maps. Like, I don't think they're going to turn Gogodora into... Is that what it's called, Gogodora? I don't think they're going to turn that into a control map because it just doesn't really make... Sorry, Gogodoro. It doesn't make sense to, like, have another Busan map. But could they make a, Arena Victoriae into part of a new control map? Or Sorenza, rework that into a bigger push map? Maybe. Like, there are things you could do to use some of these pieces. Or do they make a Place La Croix full-length push map because we don't have a French map anymore? Maybe. And these are things that I think could be developed and worked on in the future that I think ultimately will be better overall for the game. And I think they're a step in the right direction. As much as it stinks that, yes, there is this maybe red mark on the game that Stadium wasn't the big mode that they wanted it to be, so was story missions. And people are going to say what they want about story missions. Who cares about story missions anymore? Right? Like, the people who sit here and go like, remember when Overwatch added story missions, aren't playing the game anyway, right? Yes, Stadium brought in a lot of new people. I know people who really like Stadium and prefer Stadium to regular Overwatch. Those people do exist. But the majority of the player base are not those people. And what you kind of hope will happen is that you can convince people to continue to come into the game by adding new stuff every so often. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work. But I think when you start to do these things that pull away from developing your core game modes and your core experience, which is this 5v5 or 6v6 version of the game that the vast majority of the players are actually playing, I think at that point you have lost the plot a little too much, and that's where I think they need to really kind of reframe the way that they're developing the game into the future. And I'm hoping that this is kind of that lesson and that wake-up call that, yes, people do want new maps and new things in our regular base game, and that pulling development away from those things is not the move going forward if you want to make the game the best game that it can be. So that was kind of a long, rambly video, really just to talk about Stadium, but let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you agree with me, disagree with me. Are you a big Stadium fan? Do you play a lot of Stadium? Are you sad by this news? Are you happy with this news? It's kind of a weird thing for me. Like, it is a bittersweet thing where I don't play Stadium, but I don't love to be like, oh, I'm glad that they did this thing that nobody played. Because that was me with story missions. I love the story missions, and look where that ended up. But I'd love to hear from you in the comments down below, because I think this is a very interesting article or news revelation. I think it's going to be fun to have some discussion about it. So those are my thoughts. That's all from me for today. If you enjoyed this video and might want more like this in the future, consider liking and subscribing. No guarantees. But that's going to be all for me for this one. I hope you're all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time, bye-bye.